Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast, where I, Anna Woolliscroft, chat with fellow writers and outdoor enthusiasts about how we can embrace creativity and curiosity to live a life full of adventure that doesn't feel like hard work. I delve into exploratory conversations about my two loves in life, writing and nature connection, as part of my mission to share the well-being benefits they both bring. It's wonderful to have you here today. On this special nutrition-focused Writing with Purpose podcast, I chat with Jo Bibby, wellness coach for business women, about building positive habits and aligning nutrition with hormones, cycles and seasons. Hi, Jo. Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast. I'm very excited to talk to you because you are a podcast host yourself, aren't you, with your own podcast, which is Live Life Well. So hopefully we'll have a great like-minded conversation. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I know it's very strange to be on the other side of the microphone tonight, but I'm excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. I've already had a couple of great conversations about nutrition. So this is part of a new series, a 6-part series. Although I say 6-part, I have had another couple of people contact me who I don't have any reference of what they have suggested to talk about. So it might actually end up being an 8-part series. So
Great. It's an
we'll
important
see.
topic, isn't it?
It is. There's so many different facets to it as well. I find it absolutely fabulous. So, we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition in a bit, but I just want to sort of introduce you. Your company is Live Life Well, and you're a wellness coach for busy women, and you love helping them to build good habits so that they love them back. And I love the sound of this. And so, just quickly, who is a typical busy woman, and what sort of habits do you help them to build?
Well, I think most of us as women are pretty busy. I mean, modern life kind of dictates that our lives are full of things. They can be good things, but often there's lots of demands on our time, on our energy. We have work and jobs and businesses and possibly family. We might be caretakers for children or elderly relatives. There's all the interests and hobbies that we want to pursue. There's housework, there's pets, there's lots of things to be looked after. So I just really want to create space for women to think about how they look after themselves, because we can be really busy looking after everyone else, but we've got to take care of ourselves first. Firstly, just so we can feel good and enjoy our lives, but also so we've got energy to take care of everything else that we need to.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a trait, isn't it, with women, and of a particular age as well. We do tend to put other people
Yeah.
first, whereas we need our cups full
Yes.
before they can overflow, and then we help other people. So
Absolutely.
yeah. And but everyone is starting to realize this, and that's why I think, the wellness market, the well-being, the importance of looking after our well-being is just expanding, isn't it? So, we're in the
Yes.
right space.
Definitely. I'm glad that message is out there. I don't think we can hear it enough sometimes as women. We need to hear it. We need to be reminded that it's okay to take time for ourselves. So
Yeah.
the more we share that message, the better, I think.
Yeah, most definitely. And as you say, creating that space and having that energy is something that, we can only sustain that pace for so long before we need to stop and rethink, okay, well, what are we doing here? And
Yes.
so with those energy levels that cannot be depleted below a certain level, otherwise that's when we start to struggle.
Yep.
So you've got several ways, Jo, that you can help busy women. You've got a signature coaching program, you've got your seasonal wellbeing strategy calls, you've got a choice of a day retreat or a weekend retreat as well, which both
Yes.
of them sound fascinating. And
Thank you.
people can access those in the middle of the country, and also a little bit higher in Yorkshire. I was in Yorkshire this weekend, actually,
Oh,
on the
lovely.
top of the Dales.
Nice.
And
Lucky
you've
you.
also, yeah, it was wonderful. And you've also got your 30 days to healthy habits, haven't you? Is that an online course, that last one?
Yes, I tend to do most of my coaching online, so I can
Hmm.
work with women all over the country or the world. And it's a 30-day coaching program to have a bit of a gut reset. So I'll walk you through that. But we also look at your mindset and the habits that you've brought in to our work together because we all pick up things along the way. And I think as women, we kind of know what we should eat, but it's not always that simple. There's, we can eat for all different reasons and we can pick up some habits that don't maybe serve us as well as we'd like them to. So it's just taking that time out to look at what we do, why we do, but also to, yeah, help our guts, learn what foods help us feel our best, and then sort of start creating habits that will last for life beyond those 30 days.
Yeah, it's a great start for people, isn't it? I suppose give them a little bit of
Mm,
an introduction and help them to start realizing where those habits that they've picked up are not really serving them well, because I guess that's part
yeah.
of the problem, really. They don't realize that it's a bad habit as such, or a habit that could be improved. So yeah, so one of the things we're going to talk about today is that gut reset and some
Yeah.
of those habits. And one of the things that you chat to with people and your clients, isn't it, is it's around sort of the cycles and the
Mm,
impacts of cycles that we as women go through, and
yeah.
hormones. So would you like to just expand a little bit on that, and the impact that some of those unhelpful cycles have on maybe food habits and cravings, and some of the things that we can do about turning them around?
Yeah, sure. And I think just first of all, it's really important to realize that we are impacted by our cycles, and that is okay. And that is completely to be expected. We don't feel the same every week out of the month. We feel different. Our hormones can be doing all different things. It must be amazing being a man, mustn't it? And just feeling the same all the time. That must be absolutely incredible. I can't imagine. But there is also kind of a superpower that our hormones give us as women. We can really embrace those sort of up bits of our cycles. But we have, similar to the natural seasons, we have different seasons through our monthly cycle. So we have a sort of inner spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And we will need different things in those different seasons, and we'll crave different things, and that's absolutely fine. In that sort of spring and summer, what are called your follicular stage, and when you're ovulating, that's when you're feeling more energy, your mood's better, you're kind of glowing, you're in a spring in your step, literally. And that's when it's a bit easier to eat more healthily, to make good choices because we're feeling good. Our hormones are peaking, our kind of feel good hormones. So it's just really good to embrace that. If we're feeling good and we're craving the right things, then go with it and we'll just enjoy those seasons even more and feel even better and almost like prepare ourselves better for the trickier parts of our
Yeah.
cycle. And the better you eat in those more feel good parts of our cycle, you're almost setting yourself up for feeling better than you might when you're sort of premenstrual or when you're bleeding. A lot of us might have experienced PMS symptoms, but if you've got really bad PMS symptoms, that isn't normal, and that's something you should definitely check out with your doctor. But also eating better throughout your cycle should sort of minimize those more difficult symptoms. And when you get into your sort of autumn phase, which is called your luteal phase, that's the week or two before your period, you may be craving more like sweet things, more kind of carbohydrates. And again, that's really normal. You shouldn't beat yourself up for that. And there's reasons for that because your hormones are starting to dip, your mood isn't as good, but also your metabolism is slightly higher. So we do actually need a bit more food in that part of our cycle because we're
Right.
shedding the lining of our womb. That takes energy, we're losing blood. So it's okay to eat a little bit more, but what I try and do, I'm not always perfect at this, I'm definitely not perfect at all, but I try and sort of prepare some healthier treats. So maybe making up some nice healthy baking, some flapjack, some protein balls, having some dark chocolate in, lots of nice fruit and nuts and seeds, so that I've got something when I'm craving something sweet. I'm not denying myself that, but it's a better choice that will still help me feel good, but feel like I'm, yeah, taking care of myself.
Yeah, it's better than reaching for a Mars bar or the popcorn bag or something like that. You've got some of those healthy nuts and
Yeah.
fruits and things going for it. Do you freeze those then and then just sort of defrost them, or are they fine to leave in the fridge over your sort of weekly period?
They don't really last long enough in our house to freeze. Like I try and hide them from my kids and my husband. Like I love that they like eating the healthy stuff. I'm also like, I made that. That's for me. So it's normally stashed in the fridge, but they normally find it. But there are definitely things you could freeze as well. Yeah, some of the baking you could do or protein balls and maybe like portion it up a bit that way.
Yeah, I love how you've sort of referred to it as the seasons and the spring and the
Mm,
autumn, and it makes a lot of sense. And when I think now
yeah.
about my my cycle. I'm trying at the moment to get into the habit. I've got a Garmin watch, so I've got the app on my phone, and that does prompt me to
Mm,
log symptoms, and it sort of
yes.
predicts when the time of the when I'm actually going to be on my period. But I only really remember to log the symptoms when I'm actually on my period.
Yeah.
But I've started logging a few more in the lead up to, so I'm kind of doing more in the lead up to. During, I still haven't got into the habit of doing it afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing. There is an area there where I can add notes rather than just checking some of the symbols that are in there. So that's
Hmm.
a great thing to add, just to keep note of the food cravings.
Yeah, that would be a good one to try. I always recommend people try and track it for at least 3 months because 1 month might not give you an overview of a typical month. You know, things change, other things might be happening. But yeah, either using an app like that or just a notebook or printing out a tracker to see what
Yeah.
sort of patterns there are because yeah, we don't tend to think about it as much when we're in the more feel-good parts of it. But
Mm,
I think it helps you be a bit kinder to yourself and have a bit more grace for yourself. Maybe that week before your period, when you're just feeling a bit rubbish, a bit unsociable, then allow yourself to be, retreat a bit, have more nights in, slow down a little bit, rest more, and you can sort of give yourself permission to do that because you understand why that's how you're
yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. It's okay. It's all natural to feel this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I journal. I've seen that you advocate journaling as well. So if people don't have an app or anything specific, you can just make a few notes at the end of each day as to how
Yeah.
you feel. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need a fancy tracker. You can just use a notebook. That's great.
Yeah. So are there any specific foods, certain types of ingredients, maybe cooking methods that you would recommend when we're feeling a little bit more low about that? And perhaps we've got some of those cravings. You've mentioned the flapjacks and doing some nice baking, but what about sort of main meals and things like that? Is there anything that you would recommend? We
I
choose over
think,
something else, not your pizzas or, the or
yeah, I
maybe
mean,
just one is fine.
I was just gonna say, like sometimes we do just need something that's properly comforting, like a Mars bar or a pizza or a bit of cake. If that's what you really need, then have it and don't feel guilty. As long as we're not doing that every day, just because that won't help us feel great in the long run.
Yeah.
But absolutely, if you just really need some quick and convenient, then grab it. But overall, I think just having good principles of balancing your blood sugar, right, including things like complex carbs, proteins, and healthy fats in your meals, that'll help just keep your energy at a level when it would naturally be a bit lower because you're in that part of your cycle. So just trying to include those things to keep you full, things that will naturally boost your mood when it is feeling a little bit low. So I like to include plant-based proteins, so pulses and lentils and chickpeas, and also healthy fats like avocado, coconut oil, nut butters to balance out the carbs and just, yeah, have that sort of sustained energy. But also thinking about it like a season and think about what you would sort of crave in autumn and winter is those kind of more comforting foods. So think about what food you really like, what brings you comfort, maybe a big pot of chili or curry. So something that again feels like a treat, feels really tasty, but has that sort of comforting element. But also just having taking care of your gut in general throughout the year and throughout the months will again help protect you against those more difficult symptoms. So making sure you're eating like a wide variety of fruit and veg throughout your cycle, lots of leafy greens, because a lot of our hormones are formed in our gut. And when they do become lower at those parts of our cycles, you're going to be boosting them as much as you can by having a healthy gut. A healthy gut supports healthy hormones and vice versa. So just taking care of that throughout the year will help you overall.
Yeah. So I quite often get, and again, I'm not sure at what part of my cycle this is, but I've certainly put it down to if I eat more carbs, if there's a lot of bread or white
Mm,
potatoes or that sort of thing, maybe pasta, all white rather than whole wheat or whole grain foods, that I get quite bloated.
yeah.
And I feel as though and I think I do struggle to go to the toilet,
Mm,
as well as perhaps, at other
yeah.
times. So, is there anything that kind of, yeah, you leafy greens and probably drinking more fluid as well. But would it be You mentioned, curries and that sort of thing, and I love a curry. I love a stew
Mm,
pot. We quite
yeah,
often cook a chicken dinner, and then we boil the rest of it off, and then create a stew with sweet
perfect.
potatoes and broccoli and carrots and that sort of thing. But I'm just thinking, rather than maybe having, say, like a pie that's got pastry, or perhaps a jacket potato with cheese and beans, um, just having something that's like the meat and the veg more so than kind of the, I suppose I'm trying to think about, is there other ways to get rid of those
Yeah.
starchy carbs,
Yeah, sure.
the least helpful carbs.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd never want to make carbs the enemy because we need them. They're our fuel, they're what give us energy. But I always kind of encourage people to think about having more of the complex carbs, like staying away from the white processed stuff, because again, that's
Mm,
going to give you that spike of energy, then that crash afterwards, which is going to just make you feel rubbish. So just swapping them, not cutting them out at all, but just making those, yeah, healthy switches. So from white potatoes to sweet potatoes, from like white pasta to maybe like a brown rice or a lentil pasta, uh, white rice to brown rice, those kind of things, they'll always help us feel better, but especially at the points of our cycle where we might be struggling more. So
mm,
yeah, definitely thinking about that. I think the more we can reduce those white processed carbs, the better we'll feel overall,
yeah,
always. But it's okay to have a little bit of them now and again
yeah,
because
okay, it's a
you've got to
treat.
enjoy a variety of foods without feeling guilty about it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing you say really is to, have variety, have balance. Don't deprive yourself if there's
Yeah,
something that you really fancy as a treat. And
absolutely.
in particular, if we go out at night, if we go to a restaurant or
Yes.
something like that, generally you've got breads and things like that on the menu, haven't you? Which is, just, yeah, a nice treat at the
Yeah, that's
time.
okay. There's a really nice bread you can make yourself. It's really easy and it's got lots of protein in it. So you can just get some white flour or gluten-free flour, but mix it with Greek yogurt or a plant-based yogurt. So there is a bit of white flour in there, but because you've got like the nice healthy fats and the protein from the yogurt, plus lots of good prebiotics, it makes it more filling and more nutritious. So we quite often, it's a great one to make with kids. You can make it into pizza. So that's a nice one if you want something to go with your curry or your stew, but it's a bit
Yeah.
more nutritious.
That sounds nice. Yeah, I've got a bread maker, and quite
Mm,
often we have toasties now on a Saturday for lunchtime, but
nice.
quite often it's white bread just because the little one's with us, and she doesn't really like the brown.
Yeah.
But at least I sort of I appreciate the fact that there's less additives and things like that going in
Yeah.
it, because there's pretty much three or four ingredients in there with a pinch of salt, and that's about it. But I like the sound of adding the Greek yogurt, because I do like Greek
Yeah.
yogurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice
Mm,
one. It makes a really nice kind of flatbread. So you could
mm.
try that one.
And would you say, Joe, again, thinking about the cycle that we have, this is just something that's popped into my head. Do we is it better to eat less and more often at certain times through that cycle, or is it really just sort of keep notes and find out what works best for you?
Yeah, I think if you're finding that you're craving lots of snacks, it's just being curious about why that is. Is it you're not eating enough big enough portions at meal times? Are you allowing yourself enough food at your meals? Is it that you're feeling a bit stressed or a bit low? Like, is it because of your emotions? So again, tracking all that is really helpful. So I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer in terms of how often you're eating. I just would say make sure you're eating enough at meals so you're not getting too hungry in between, then filling up with like sugary or saturated fat kind of snacks in between. But if you do need a snack, have one. Just make sure it's like a good choice that's going to sustain your energy. I think that's a general good rule. Like I think we will crave more snacks in our autumn and winter, and that is okay. But just make sure you're having good enough meals to keep you
Yeah.
going.
I know sometimes I get a little bit of a craving late on in the afternoon, and when I think, oh, I've got 3 hours or 2.5 hours to wait for my main meal, I'd have a snack. But I try and have things like maybe a rice cake with a little bit of hummus on,
Brilliant.
or a sort of soft cheese, which probably isn't best, but
It's okay.
I'll put it on a rice cake, or there's some like little mini cracker things that I buy from Lidl. There are other supermarkets out there,
Not sponsored by
which,
them.
yeah, which are really thin, and some of them are a sweet chili flavour, which I just
Mm,
find. delicious, and they sort of come in a tray with four sections, and one section is about 100 calories. I know
Okay,
calories isn't always something that you should refer to, but to me, that's quite a decent snack.
that seems all right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's just knowing yourself and knowing your body. And what I found and what I help my clients with is the better, the sort of more nutritious choices you make, the more you'll crave the right things. Yeah, your taste will change the more you feed yourself the right foods, and the better shape your gut health is in, the more you'll crave the right things. So I think once you get that sorted out, you learn to sort of trust yourself more, and you'll know, oh, maybe I do fancy a bit of cake, and I do, and that's okay because I don't fancy it every day, or I've had something sweet, but I'll have a bit of dark chocolate and that's fine. I think it's when, especially as women, we lose that connection with ourselves and lose that trust with ourselves, and we end up just feeding food. It's almost like food controls us, and we don't trust our our levels of hunger or what we're craving. So I think if we get the basics right, we'll naturally crave the right thing. And there'll be days that we are hungrier, and that's okay. And there'll be days that we're not as much, and that's okay. But it's a bit of a journey of just getting to know yourself again, reconnecting, knowing what you need to feel well, and then being okay with that.
Yeah. And I think, our tastes change over time as well, don't
Hmm.
they? So the taste buds, as well as what's going on internally in our gut and with our cycles, we do, yeah, we do change what we fancy and what we crave. I mean, I'm noticing that I've never really gone for the sweet food. I've always chosen savoury. I used to love
Mm.
Bombay mix when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I used to go for curries every so often with my parents. So I was introduced to a sort of more of an exotic range of foods, I suppose, from quite an early age. So I've always been quite varied in what I've eaten. But for me, I have to have food as well that has a taste. I
Yes.
can't, I really find it off-putting when what sprung to mind there, I'm digressing slightly, but what
That's
sprung to
okay.
mind, we went out for somebody's 70th birthday once at a hotel, and it was I think it might have been a lamb dinner that they served, but the vegetables were just boiled to death. There was
Oh,
no
it's the
and it was
worst.
awful. It was I mean, obviously didn't say anything at the time because it was somebody's birthday, but to me, that's worse than almost eating the wrong thing.
Yeah, there's that Japanese phrase, I think it's umami when food has like that salty, sweet, sour, um, what's the other one? There's another one. I can't remember, but like it's the pleasure we get from that. And I think food should be a pleasure. And again, I think that's something we have to reclaim as women who for years have been taught we should restrict ourselves and minimize ourselves, and food is bad and it's dangerous, it's going to make you fat. We almost have to like reclaim the pleasure we get from food, because food is amazing. Like I love
Yeah.
food. I love talking about it. I love eating it. And we should be able to enjoy all kinds of food in the right proportions to help us
Mm.
feel well. But yeah, I think reclaiming that pleasure and thinking about what we really enjoy and having it without kind of guilt or shame is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Because if we feel guilty about something, then we are, as you say, we're shaving, shaming ourselves into,
Yeah,
well, I can't do that, or and then that has a spiraling effect, doesn't it? We're not
yeah,
good enough for things, or we're not worthy for something, and there's a lot of other self-limiting beliefs then that can be set off by our relationship with foods.
yeah.
So, is there any other sort of other cycles or aspects of the clients that you work with that you could perhaps highlight in terms of unhealthy habits that we might have around food?
Yeah, I think that kind of leads on really well, because I think I work almost exclusively with women, and that is a big theme, kind of having that shame around food and losing trust with ourselves. And I think that comes from maybe our upbringing, how we see ourselves, our sort of, yeah, feeling of self-worth, maybe things we've been called. I think it comes a lot from the diet culture, women being told they should look a certain way to be acceptable. And like you're saying, like shame and guilt are never good motivators. They
Mm.
never help us make good choices. They just make us feel worse about ourselves, which then make us make worse choices. I think it can be guilt around women feeling that they are worth the time it takes to take care of themselves. Like we are busy taking care of partners and children, and other people. So to even think it's worth spending a little bit of extra time in the kitchen to prepare something nutritious or spend a little bit extra more money on food that you really enjoy that helps you feel well, I think they can be limiting beliefs as well. But I think it is just reminding women, especially that we are worth taking care of. And when we show up better in the world, we have a better impact on all the people around us. And what I love, one of my favorite things I see when women start taking care of themselves is how it then inspires the people around them. I love hearing when mums start cooking healthy treats for themselves, that their children start asking for them instead of like biscuits and cakes and chocolate. And just the generational impact that's having, teaching your children good habits, teaching your children that you're worth taking care of. So are they. Like that's so powerful. And that can break kind of generational habits of, I mean, I don't know about you, but I grew up with a mum, like my mum's amazing, but she was like thick in the diet culture of the 80s, the fads that went on, the cabbage soup diet, the Atkins diet, Weight Watchers, Slimming World, I mean, I've been there, I've done it. And that can be so negative because all these things work for a while, but they don't teach you how to maintain these things long
Mm.
term. They're kind of like short term fixes, and then you end up in this spiral, don't you? So I
Yeah, it's a bit
think,
of a yo-yo effect if you,
yeah,
it's, yeah.
which can affect your metabolism. It can affect all sorts of things. So I think there's lots to unpack. There's lots of things that we bring, like we were saying at the start. So yeah, I think just that message that, yeah, that we are worth taking care of just
Mm.
for that, no other reason, because we are, that life is short and precious and we should get to enjoy it by feeling the best that we can, and that it shouldn't be complicated. I think that can be another thing. It's too complicated. It's too time consuming. There's too much information out there. So I always try and keep the message really simple, just really simple principles, working on one or two habits at a time, not trying to change everything. It's not all or nothing. We can definitely do that. Like I'll start on Monday, I've ruined it,
Yeah.
it's all ruined. I have to be perfect or I'm not going to bother at all. So yeah, just reminding us that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just finding that happy middle ground where we can enjoy food, but eat enough of the right foods to feel well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as we start to tune into what our body's saying and doing, then that does come a little bit easier,
Yeah.
definitely. And I love how you say, give ourselves time in the kitchen to prepare something nutritious because
Yeah.
I really enjoy cooking. I like using
Yeah.
single ingredients and cooking things from scratch, curries, stir fries. My partner always says I'm great at cupboard food because, if we haven't been shopping, there's not much in. I will always find something
Yeah.
out of what ingredients we've got. And actually, it's usually pretty tasty.
Yeah, I love that. But Freddie said you cook if you're old enough to remember that. And I think
Yes,
it's just good to
yes.
have those staple things in, isn't it? Because I'm not always I teach people to meal plan and meal prep, but it doesn't always work. Sometimes we're not that
Mm,
organized, but having those staples in, so like tin of tomatoes, tin of chickpea, tin of coconut milk, you can pretty much make a curry then. So
yeah.
knowing what it is you can just grab that you can just have in if you've not got a lot of time, that just really helps you make good choices again. But yeah, definitely I find cooking, if I've got space and time and the kids aren't pestering me, then it's quite therapeutic. It's like a bit of self-care, isn't it? Getting in the
Mm,
kitchen, putting your podcast on, maybe
yeah.
some music, chopping up your veg. And it doesn't have to take lots more time either. I think that's a bit of a myth. It just takes that little bit of preparation, I think.
It does, yeah. But I think if you're enjoying it, it's quite mindful. It
Yes.
is time well spent, and we could almost say that that is the self-care. The act in preparing the food,
Yeah.
the chopping, stirring it in the saucepan, whatever it is that we're doing. That's part of our self-care process in
Yeah.
preparing that nutritious meal. So, yeah, I like that. So next time I go and create something, I shan't worry that I'm in the kitchen for too long. I shall just enjoy my time cooking.
Yes, that's your self-care time. You deserve it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So is there anything else, Joe, that you think is worth sharing to the listeners, about maybe things to look out for, or tips and hints that sort of typically work for a lot of people that they can, go ahead and sort of implement with ease?
Yeah, there's just a couple of things about gut health I was going to mention because, like I say, it's a bit of a buzzword. You'll have heard of it, but the
Mm.
information can be a bit overwhelming. So, a really simple way I like to think about it is thinking of your gut a bit like a garden. And your gut really is your whole digestive system from eating to getting rid of it. But mainly it's those kind of like your intestines, like your long and your short intestine. And that's where your body absorbs all the goodness from your food. And I think we know what isn't as good. So things like processed foods, alcohol, refined sugar. They're the things that aren't so good for our guts. But again, it's not demonizing any of those. It's just trying to have them in enough moderation so we're eating most of the good stuff that nourishes our gut. So I like thinking of it a bit like a garden. So thinking of those things as kind of like the weeds that we need to like kind of root out or not to have too many of. And then you want to have lots of variety in your garden, lots of lovely flowers and plants, and that's like your good bacteria. And we want to think about how to sort of restock them and feed them. And the thing that they love most is like a variety of fruit and vegetables, but especially those leafy greens,
Mm.
because they feed them, they basically feed off the fiber from those foods. And they've all got such a diversity of nutrients and things in them that are so good for us. So just, I think what the ideal recommendation is to have kind of 30 different plants a week. And that sounds like a lot, but
Does
actually you
sound
can
like a lot, yeah.
it does, but try and track that too. I mean, the kids do this sometimes. We'll track how many we've had a week, and it's actually easier than you think to reach that because you can include things like rice, potatoes, herbs, spices, pulses. They're all anything that comes from the ground, basically, you can
Mm.
include that. But try to get as many sort of colours and variety as you can. And then you can also top up your good bacteria by having probiotics. So either like a supplement or like kefir, natural yogurt, plant-based yogurt, maybe making some sauerkraut, things like that, or taking a good quality probiotic supplement once or twice a year. You don't have to take it every day. But the thing that I also really love to think about in terms of our gut health is that it's not just about the food we eat, it's about how we take care of ourselves. It's about that self-care because as you might have heard, our guts and our brains talk to each other. So if
Mm.
we're feeling stressed, that will send the message to our gut like we're in danger. We're going to fight or flight. And the blood supply to our gut slows down, goes to our brain to help us like run away from tigers.
Yeah.
Uh, and so our guts will stop digesting our food as well. They won't take all the nutrients that they need from the food. So we could be eating the perfect diet, but if you are stressed out all the time, you're not going to be getting all the goodness from it. You're not going to have good gut health. So I love to just think about that our gut health really relates to how we take care of ourselves in other ways, how we rest, getting enough sleep, having connection with positive people in our lives, being with the people we love, stroking your pet, all those things. So actually getting your hands dirty, like a garden, literally helps because there's lots
Mm.
of microbes in the soil. So all of
Gosh, I'll
these
have to take
things.
my gloves off next time I do the
Yeah,
weeding there.
definitely. Get your hands dirty. That's how we used to have such good gut health back when we were all living off the land because we're out digging and planting and eating all those good vegetables. So yeah, just like sort of reconnecting with the earth and having fun with your kids and your pets and things like that. Yeah, it's like getting that whole sort of picture. Being well isn't just about what we eat at all. It's how we take care of our minds and our bodies and soul. It's all connected. So really that kind of holistic care will help you feel well as what you eat.
Yeah, I love the analogy of having you thinking of it as a garden, and you talked about the leafy greens, and I imagine that was
Mm,
almost like the base of the soil,
yeah,
the foundation of and then everything else is put on top of it. It's a great way to think about it, and also when you say that 30 different plants, when you actually think about what you're consuming, and if you're including the spices and everything else,
hmm
I certainly think I'm probably achieving that based on
yeah,
how you described it then. But it was interesting that you're saying that sort of how the gut and the mind are connected, which the gut quite often is referred to as the second brain, isn't it?
yeah.
And I mentioned that I was in the Yorkshire Dales this weekend. I was on a walking holiday with three friends, and this happens to me every time, and it's definitely coming from my mind. I struggle to go to the bathroom for the
Yeah,
first
we
couple
do
of
when we're on
days.
holiday, don't we? Because we're out of our normal routine. We don't feel as
Yeah.
safe. I think that's what it is. We feel like, oh, we don't have the safety of our normal environment.
Mm.
So something kind of shuts down a bit, doesn't it?
It does a little bit, and it's as though there's no movement there, and you don't
Yeah.
want to force the issue. But yeah, I mean, everything else was perfect, outside in the fresh air.
Yeah.
But it was just, yeah, so it shows how powerful the mind is, and just sort
Yes.
of change in environmental circumstances and how that can have a knock-on effect. And again, which sort of leads on to the importance of being aware of that, tracking it, using something so that you can start to pick out those trends, and then that, okay, well, this is coming up, a little bit like those seasons with the cycles, that you then can prepare for it. And maybe eat different foods while you're away to help with the movement, help to get that flowing a little bit better. But yeah, it's fascinating how we're so complex.
Yes, it is absolutely fascinating. I'm a bit obsessed with gut health because it is so interesting how it affects kind of every area of our well-being. So I don't
Mm,
think you need to be a doctor or a scientist, but I think the more you learn about it, the more it kind of motivates you to look after what you eat because you understand the connection.
yeah. Yeah, and that can only come with education and with knowledge, can't it? And speaking to people that have this knowledge or have gone through, trialing and testing and process of elimination also, because
Yes,
I think there's that many factors now that we have in modern world that we didn't have sort of 30, 40 years ago, that,
absolutely.
can have other knock-on effects that we probably don't know the full story about yet because not enough research has gone into it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's fascinating. So do
Yeah.
when people if people come onto your retreats as well, do they get healthy meal at lunchtime?
Oh, of course, that's one of our favorite things. I do them with my friend Maddie, who's a therapist, and we just love to just take care of the women for a day because we know how busy their lives are. So we absolutely love to just feed them. It's all always plant-based, so we do a plant-based menu. So we'll have a nice smoothie and a muffin when they come in, and a really nice lunch, and then a little nice afternoon snack like a protein ball or a bit of healthy cake. So our weekend retreat is our first one that we're doing this year. So the thing I'm most excited about is planning the menu for it. I'm so excited for that.
And again, when people are coming on these day retreats, they're sort of digitally detoxing.
Yep.
They're spending some time with like-minded people away from the daily stresses of normal life. So having all of this good stuff just helps with their energy, helps with their
Yeah.
mood. It's yeah, I can't imagine anything worse than just turning up on something like that and having a coffee and biscuits.
I know, it'd be so disappointing, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think we want them to go away realizing how good they can feel when they take care of themselves, and part of that is the food, but also not having to cook for themselves for the day. How nice is that when we're always so
Yeah.
busy cooking for everyone else? So that's like a real treat, I think. And I think at the weekend, what I'm going to do for one of the meals, invite ladies to come and make it with me, a bit of a sort
Mm.
of cooking workshop. So it's really nice to sort of learn some new recipes and be able to go home and have that at home if they want to.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
definitely. I think that's great fun. There's a lady, she's a therapist, not far from me, but she's also, I think she's from India,
Mm,
originally, but she does cooking classes as well with, traditional Indian food. And I didn't realize she
nice.
did that because it's never anything that she talks about. But said
Mm,
next time you do one, please do let me know because I would love to, not just follow a recipe from, the BBC food website, but have somebody who's got the proper traditions,
yes.
who knows how to mix the spices in what order,
Mm,
and I just think that'd be a fabulous use of time.
definitely. And just doing that together as women is really lovely, but learning from different cultures and trying new things. Great.
Yeah, yeah, I'm all for trying new things.
Yes.
Yeah, the wackier it sounds, the better for me these days.
You're up for
That is,
it.
I am up for it. Yeah, that's just part of me, sort of being creative and curious. I think it's food is one of those things that I definitely mix up and yeah, try and satisfy my taste buds or excite my taste buds, shall I say?
Nice.
Yeah. So Jo, it just sort of if we wrap up and
Yeah.
I'm going to include some of the links on your website to the retreats and how people can connect with you, and download those the 30-day habits. But what's the best way for them to reach you, and get in touch?
Sure. So I'd love to stay in touch. I'd love to carry on this conversation. So I'm probably most active on Instagram. So it's Jo underscore live life well on there. And all the links are in my bio there. And I've also got my website. It's livelifewellness.co.uk. So they're probably the best places to find me. Also my podcast, you can find that on any good platform, Live Life Well podcast for busy women.
Perfect. Lovely. Well, it's been fabulous to talk to you. I've learned a lot and thank you very much for your time.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's Writing with Purpose podcast. Having conversations with fellow writers or adventure enthusiasts brings two of my biggest loves in life together, writing and nature connection. I've been a copywriter and content creator for 23 years, but my passion is writing for well-being, and I'm on a mission to share the benefits that putting pen to paper has for personal wellness with as many people as possible. If you want to learn more about writing for your well-being and journaling techniques, please connect with me in my Facebook group, Journaling with Anna.